Today I met up with one of my guitar heroes, a true music legend, a master, dare I say one of the greatest to ever bend a string, Mr. Marty Friedman. You may know him from Megadeth, playing in Cacophony with Jason Becker, all of these amazing solo records he's done. So I met up with him in Boston to talk about his new book, his new solo record, and just to catch up one neurotic guitarist to another. Marty, thanks so much for coming back.
Great to see you again.
Welcome back to the US for the second time since I've seen you.
Great to be here.
How's the tour going?
Fantastic. Loving every second of it.
I hope you don't mind. I noticed you put on your sunglasses. I feel like I need to get on your level.
There you go. Stylish.
I just listened to Drama, your new record, and it's so hyper melodic. Can you talk to me about this record and your mindset when you were writing it, and maybe your writing process a little bit?
I wanted to do an album that's very romantic. Like I did a long time ago an album called Scenes. It's probably the one that people are most passionate when they come up to me and say, I love that album, I wish you'd do another album like that. So that's kind of always in my mind, but I never really want to repeat myself. That was a long, long time ago. How would I approach something, kind of a romantic album right now with all of the life experience that has piled up since then and being able to create music hopefully better than back then? And it was kind of like Scenes on steroids, so to speak. So it's like hyper romantic, hyper orchestral, like all the melodic motifs that you might expect from my things are really brought out on the record.
So when you say romantic, can you explain what it is to write romantically?
That's a great question. The type of aggression is different from like heavy metal aggression. Heavy metal aggression comes kind of like from stamina and lots of down picking and lots of bashing your head over with drums. And
I thought it came from your dick.
Well, everything comes from there.
Oh, okay.
Everything, romantic or not, everything comes from there first. It's easier to listen to it than explain it, but the melodies are kind of romantic. They're almost, I don't want to say Latin, but sometimes they're very Jewish sounding, sometimes Asian countries, but the melodies are very distinct. They're strong. It's not like they're hidden in there. They're very easy in your face. Sometimes when you're playing metal, there's a lot of melodies in there, but they're kind of hidden under, tricky riffs and high energy parts and stuff. But here the melodies are just way out front with like no shame.
It's actually interesting you said the melody thing, because the way I can describe it, it almost sounds like it's Broadway or thematic for like a television show. Did you compose a melody first and then work backwards?
Oftentimes, yeah, because if I find a melody that's worth pursuing, that's a good starting point, because if you have a solid melody that you can do something with, then you can experiment a lot and a lot of things work. But if you don't have a melody that you're in love with, none of the other ideas happen. Of course, I throw away 90% of everything before I even get started. But once I get the melody, then I approach it in many different ways, change a lot of different keys, tempos, different orchestral instruments, different guitar, bass, drums, and all those things change. But the melody kind of is the leader. If I love the melody, then it's just a long process to find the best way to express it.
Where does the melody come from? Do you sit and play randomly and then it's like, oh, that sounds good? Or are you in the shower hearing a melody and you have to go run and get a guitar?
Those ways both definitely happen. And also I might hear another melody in the background music of wherever and say, I'm going to steal that. Because by the time I've stolen it and embellished it my own way, it absolutely doesn't resemble anything that it was originally ripped off from. Or I'll hear something, I say, I like that, but I hate the way it ends on this note. I'm going to end it this way. And that starts me on a very, very long path. So it never really resembles stuff that it was originally influenced by, but that happens often too.
Something I found very interesting in your book, Dreaming Japanese, it's very, very open. What inspired you to all of a sudden be like, here I am, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, I figure if you're doing an autobiography, that's the pretty much only time to do that. Because in interviews, it's always stick to the topic at hand, the record, the tour, whatever's going on. It's never about personal things. And it's never about kind of fragile relationships between family members or band members. It's always, to keep the attention on the product or whatever it is. And I'm a private person anyway, so I never even thought to talk about private things in public. This is the time I'm going to put everything in there that I've never said before. You can't be embarrassed by stuff, and you can't make it sound like a resume. I believe when you write this type of thing, the natural instinct is to make yourself look good and kind of rewrite the history. I was reading other guys' autobiographies, and that stuff wasn't so fun to read. It was more interesting to read about the struggles and the things that humanize them rather than all the accolades, and all that stuff's on the internet anyway. A lot of this stuff kind of paints me in not the best light, but it's the true light of myself and everyone around me. So that's why, of course I treated all of my bands, including the ones people know Megadeth, people know Cacophony, but I also talked about the earlier bands from high school and junior high. And
Deuce,
Hawaii. Man. Hawaii, with exactly the same amount of detail and truth. There might not be as many people who care about that as much as the more well-known stuff, but I treated it with the exact same amount of detail.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but I actually disagree, because I loved reading about going into a barn with your friends, smoking weed, getting the chicks down, playing some Kiss. How important do you feel that is to the development of a musician? Because I feel like a lot of those things don't happen anymore.
Yeah, great point. I was so lucky, and in the book you'll see in detail that when I was like 14, 15, started a band, and we had a place to rehearse. It was like in a kind of a barn-like building, and people showed up and watched us rehearse. And we're putting on a show for these people every night. We could barely play, but we acted like we could play. Fake it till you make it. And next thing you know, we're starting to be able to actually play. And playing in front of people became second nature from that. And it kind of is a big foundation to what I am now, because I've never been one of those sit-at-home practice guys. It's always in front of, if there's no one watching, there's no purpose in doing it.
So if the beautiful girl's over there, it makes you want to try a little bit harder for that guitar solo?
The girls, and not only that, it's the guitar players going like this, you know what I mean?
Were they always like that? Were they always standing in the front?
But back in those days, they were just cheering us on, and you get a chemistry with the band guys doing it, even at 15. And I said in the book that, like, even when I started to become a professional and playing huge venues and stuff, I'd look around at the band members and I think, I kind of wish that it was these original Deuce guys that I was playing with, because it was really that first bond of playing music for people and rocking out and doing that stuff.
Well, it's like that wonderment and awe when you're growing up going, I'm going to make it with these guys, and, and every band is the last band. If you could go back to one of those Deuce practices and you could just pull yourself aside, what would you tell yourself, or what would you say, hey man, stop doing that on the guitar, try this?
On the guitar, I don't think I would say too much, but I'd probably say cool down on all of the illegal substances. But then again, I don't think I'd even say that, because I got it all out of my system by the time I was 17. I mean, I did like 3 lifetimes worth of everything by then. So by the time I started to get serious about being a professional, I was like ultra straight edge, because I'd enjoyed enough of it. Enjoyed it all. No regrets. I loved it. Loved getting completely wasted and partying. And
well, you actually had a moment where, and spoiler alert, where you said it stopped because you were a big stoner, but then you said you took acid.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to meet up with your dad.
Yeah.
Right? Can you talk about this and like why it made you stop? Because it seems like it was literally a life-changing experience for you.
Yeah, it was. I was doing everything. I loved all the drugs, but acid was one that I never took, and I didn't take it because to me it was like a hippie thing, and I was just never like a hippie dude, and Grateful Dead and Woodstock, and just not my thing. I was more of a punk rocker, hard rock, heavy metal dude, but like I had good friends who had just said, dude, this is awesome. I'll try it. What do you got to lose? And people have good trips and people have bad trips, and I think what I had was a very, very, very bad trip. And I thought I was going to wind up being a mental patient if I ever came down from it, because it was not going away. It was not going away. And while I was up there, I was like, if I ever survive this, I swear to God, I'm not going to do anything but work on music and play music and become the best musician I can be. I'm not going to even like take a sip of beer. I'm not going to smoke a joint. I'm not going to do any more Quaaludes, no more Coke, no nothing. All gone, everything going directly into music. And that's basically what I did.
So to me, it sounds like that acid experience was an awesome one, because it
turned out to be.
Maybe that's the discipline of why we have Marty Friedman here today.
I think it is,
are.
because I'm constantly, subconsciously, always trying to better myself and not letting something that I've done in the past be the best thing I've ever done. You know what I mean? It might have come from that.
Something I also noticed in your book, which I related to because Benny Goodman, Marty Friedman, I'm a nice Jew. I got a Jewish mother too. You said that you played Hatikva in Israel.
Yeah.
Did you call your Jewish mother afterwards?
Oh, you bet. I'm a big Jew when it benefits me.
That's the most Jewish response
That's
ever.
a very Jewish response
Very
right
Jewish
there.
response.
I will play that Jew card when I can. But
You're Jewish.
I'm Jewish. Yeah, that's perfect. No, I mean, I grew up Jewish, but I was never really into the religious part of it, but I did all the Jewish things, bar mitzvahs and all that stuff. And I think it's fantastic, but I'm just not really into religion, period. But when you go down to Israel and you grew up Jewish and you're playing that national anthem for all these Jewish dudes, and they all look like me. They're all long-haired, but their name is like Shlomo Goldberg. It's so weird.
David!
It's so insane, but that moment, I will never ever forget it. It was just the most wonderful thing. And then I pretty much out-Jewed everybody in my family just by doing that.
And that's a Jewish thing too, it's that Jewish competition. You could keep kosher for 20 years, but I played Hatikva in Yerushalayim.
Yeah, whatever level of the Jew spectrum you're at, it's all wonderful. I'm very, very glad that I was brought up that way. I think I wrote something in the book, basically it's the golden rule. Just be nice to people and you want to be treated. But I'm not into like any kind of rules like you can't eat. Who doesn't want to eat pork fried rice?
It tastes good, man.
It tastes cheeseburgers.
It's delicious.
Who wrote that religion? No cheeseburgers?
I don't understand.
Yeah, so like you can pick and choose.
You always talk about drummers. What makes a drummer worthy of the Marty Friedman band?
Man, that is the toughest thing. I pay more attention to the drums, bass, and other instruments on my records than my guitar, by far. And knowing that, you can probably listen to it in a new light, because it just makes me sound all the better. But with the drummer, first of all, every single note has to mean something. I really, really, really don't like when guys play too many notes, or they do pedestrian type of fills, or they do fills that don't make you feel there's a reason for doing that fill. And guys who don't play with 1,000% of authority, guys who just kind of play regular, you'll see my drummer. I mean,
I've seen him.
You've seen him. So like the guy,
he's wild.
I need the tailwind behind me. I need the tailwind behind me, and I need perfect tempos and bonehead beats, even though we're playing difficult stuff. And it's really a tall order, but I've been so blessed to play with so many wonderful drummers in my life. I don't know how I got so lucky.
Well, you got Greg Bissonette on this record, right?
Well, it's all ballads, so he is my immediate go-to for ballads.
How do you work with a guy like Greg? Do you sit there and do you jam the songs out, or do you just throw them in the fire and say, go?
No, I make demos. We've been working together for decades, so we kind of have the shorthand, but I make demos, and then I walk them through it. And I say, my drum machines suck, but you know what I mean. and he does. He's just the ultimate pro and absolutely the top. Ballads are very difficult, especially for heavy rock drummers. It's really not in their DNA. Greg Bissonette's probably played thousands of hit ballads, and there's a feeling and there's a touch, and then you add my kind of warped mentality to it. He's the only guy that, well, there's a couple other guys I would consider if Greg was on a desert island, but Greg is my definite guy.
In Japan, you've done 600 plus television shows. And one of the things I thought was a very cool skill that you developed was the ability to take multiple artists and combine them together. Like, could I tell you, take Elvis and the Ramones and you could just make me a song right now?
Oh, that'd be an easy one, yeah.
So what would be your first thought? How would you approach Elvis and the Ramones?
I mean, Ramones are practically playing Elvis songs as it is, so it wouldn't be hard to change much. I mean, Johnny Ramone is a big Elvis fan like me, so that'd be easy. But I kind of always, when I hear anything, I think, how would I change it? How would I do it my way? And hence, I have 3 Tokyo Jukebox albums where I totally destroy these songs. And, maybe that's a Jewish type of thing, how should this really be? I'll show you how it should be.
You love Elvis. Do you think that Scotty Moore or Elvis comes out through your playing? Like, does he manifest ever? Do you ever go, that's an Elvis thing? Or is that an autonomous?
No, I look at Elvis more like a religion.
Okay.
Actually, if there was a God, I think it's Elvis. Or this Japanese singer named Misora Hibari. Those are my 2 God figures. But yeah, I don't Scotty Moore was great, groundbreaking guitar player back then. And he had a unique style, but what I do doesn't really cross paths with it.
So what about Elvis makes him a religion?
It's just magic. He's been there through my whole life and will always give me a feeling of home base. There's no close second. He was the first. He was the best. First.
When you come back to the United States, is there any culture shock now coming back, with maybe a Japanese mindset?
Every time, everything is so different here. The main thing is I don't know who's on TV. I look on the TV and it's all these new people. Occasionally there'd be a face I recognize, but much older. It's so weird. It's like the Twilight Zone. You know what I mean? So,
So Tom and Jerry haven't aged?
Tom and Jerry would be fine to watch. That's fine.
Canceled, I'm pretty sure. I don't even think they show Tom and Jerry
if you
anymore.
look at Judge Judy, and I lived here 25 years ago, she looks different.
Her voice has gone down.
The new people, the topical people, it's like being in Denmark or something. I don't know who's who. It's very strange for my home country.
How about the food when you come back here? Is there things that you go to immediately?
Well, the portions have gotten much bigger here. And you notice it because in Japan the portions are very small. And I'm a kind of small eater anyway, but portions are bigger. In New York, you got to get New York pizza, right?
Definitely.
They don't really have American Chinese food in Japan, so I get that.
You don't put a lot of credence into gear, and it seems, where does tone come from? Where does the Marty sound come from? People say wood, people say pickups, people say amps, speakers. Where does it come from?
It comes from me saying that's it when the tech dials it up. So the way I get tone live and in the studio is a tech and an engineer work together with the gear and they get a sound and I say, yeah, I can work with that, and that's done. Then it's just up to me because I know what I can work with. If it sounds like I can work with that, then that's it.
So if I gave you like an angle amp like you have on stage, but said, go get yourself a tone, would you be lost?
Not with an angle. Angle, you just turn it on and it sounds good. So that's very simple. Yeah, I tend not to work with complex gear anyway. An engineer or tech who's trained in that will get a better sound. But it wouldn't really matter too much because I think the way I play is going to sound like me regardless, for better or for worse. I mean, me with bad tone is going to sound like me with bad tones.
It's interesting you say that because when we worked on Lost Symphony, you sent us a bunch of written tracks, but you sent us all the DIs and said, have at it if you want to do it, which seems like you're giving a lot of freedom to people, which tells me that that it's all there.
It's all there. If I gave it to you, then I signed off on it.
You don't care if someone takes that because once you have that clean signal, because it tells me that the tone's in your fingers.
Yeah, the people say that, and then I kind of agree. And it's also in what you agree to let go. If I had a track, I'm sure I had many tracks that I didn't send to you that are not very good. So you don't have those. So it's me choosing what you hear is what the tone is.
What I learned about Japanese culture from you, from reading, Dreaming Japanese, which I encourage anybody to go read, even if you're not a reader. It's an easy read, is that the Japanese are very big on gifts. So I brought you and your bandmates some gifts that I wanted you to open today.
Oh, dude, you're totally kidding.
Nope, not. It's almost like I know you, Marty. It's almost like I know you.
You do. This is my favorite thing that they don't have in Japan. Colorful cereal. This endears me. Now you're like my best friend for this. This is so cool.
You've missed the best, though.
These two, they don't have these in Japan either. I love these so much. These are popular here.
I don't know if the crunch ones are different than the normal Flaming Hot ones, but those are what they had.
See, here's the thing. These are like really, really delicious. And they tried to put them out in Japan, but they were different. And the main difference was when you touch them, your hands don't get red.
And that's where it's all the flavors at.
I mean, Japanese people aren't going to walk around with red fingers. One time I was like in a store and I'd just been eating them. And I was paying at the register, and the girl says, "You've been eating these Cheetos, haven't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she shows me her finger. She says, "So have I." That could have been a great pickup point right there.
I was going to say, brought to you by Cheetos, our newest sponsor.
Yeah, dating. It's a new dating program.
Well, this is how you know your soulmates.
Yeah, this is really, and no one bought them, so you can't get them in Japan. And they weren't the same because it's that redness.
When we worked on Lost Symphony together, as a thank you, I asked you how I could thank you, and I went down all this list, and you're finally like, let me stop you there. Can you get me some Flaming Hot, Cheetos, some Cap'n Crunch? And I sent it to you, and I went and looked up that email, and you were like a giddy school child.
I still am. Yeah, I cannot wait to eat this.
Is this breakfast for you?
This is any meal of the day, and we've been so busy on this tour, I haven't even had a chance. We've been out for 2 weeks. I haven't had any yet.
Why don't you smash that subscribe button already?